gentlemen, welcome back to Hollywood Smoke in Santa Monica. This is another edition of 10 Count, and yes, call it a comeback. I'm Steve Kim, joined by the two Mikes, Mr. Baca and Mr. Montero. I know we've been gone for a while. Our schedules didn't match, but we are here now for you. And we talk about the card this Saturday night on HBO. It's the return of Boxing After Dark on HBO from the still fabulous Forum. Your main event for the WBC 130-pound belt, Miguel Berchelt takes on Japanese warrior Takashi Miura. And for the WBA version of that belt, Jezreel Corrales takes on Mexican rugged journeyman Robinson Castellanos in a light heavyweight battle. Not your average Joe Smith takes on Sullivan Barrera. All right, Mike, I think we were both there January 28th at Fantasy Springs. I know I was. When you watch Berchelt and Miura, they're both fan-friendly action fighters, but did you get the sense one guy had a lot more wear and tear on him?
Yeah, and it was Miura, I thought. Berchelt against Vargas was very good. He basically put him into submission by reopening those cuts, and was it the 11th round they had to stop it? And it was kind of a mercy stoppage. And it was an incredible performance for Berchelt, considering it was his HBO debut. And, you know, he's a strong puncher, Mexican kid, the Scorpion they call him. And one funny thing about leading up to that fight, at the press conference, he wanted to take a picture with Miura, I remember. And after, when I interviewed him, I was like, you know, why do you want to take a picture with this guy? He's, you know, fighting on the other card. He told me, I'm going to fight that guy next. He's like, Miura's going to win, I'm fighting him next. Turns out, they're fighting each other.
Yeah. One key stat, Mr. Montero, Takashi Miura, I believe, is in his early 30s, 33. Berchelt is 25. Will youth be served?
I think so. I think, you know, if you just look at all the wars Miura has been in, he's been in several fights of the year, fight of the year contenders the last few years. And, you know, guys, those Japanese fighters are tough. They come, they always bring it, they come to win. But eventually that concrete's going to crack. And Berchelt looks so strong against Vargas. He just sliced and diced him. He's peaking right now. Miura looked kind of flat, as you mentioned, Mike. I just think that it's going to be competitive early just because of all the experience Miura brings, but eventually he's going to get chopped down.
Yeah, Miguel Roman gave Miura a lot of problems, and I've always said this about Mickey Roman. He's tougher than he is talented, and Miura, like you said, has been through the grinder, fight of the years. And with Miguel Berchelt, I remember being there ringside that night, and it seemed to me Berchelt was like literally growing in front of us in physical stature, and he made Francisco Vargas look almost impotent out there, and he seemed to get smaller. And you take away that one loss to Berchelt, first round knockout, those things can be an aberration. But again, I do think youth will be served. That seems to be the consensus. Jezreel Corrales against Robinson Castellanos. Mr. Montero, your thoughts on the matchup? The last time we saw Castellanos, he was ending what were the remnants of Yuriorkis Gamboa on May 6th.
Wow. You know, and that's how he earned this shot, really. You know, that was his big chance. And he went in there, took care of business. So what can you say? Now he's in there against Corrales, who definitely is more experienced. You know, at first, when this fight was first announced, I wasn't big on it. But the more I think about it, the more excited I am, just because of the last performance by Castellanos against Gamboa. He's not afraid of the big stage. He gets it. That got him here. This is his big opportunity. I think he's going to bring it.
That is your classic Mexican modern-day Pendleton. 24-12. He's not going to care about losing. Yeah. Mike, the one thing we know about Jezreel Corrales last year, he beat a very solid Japanese fighter in Takashi Uchiyama. But one thing about Castellanos, he's a big, rangy guy. I think his last loss to Escandón was more about the weight. He looked very drained at 126. Tall, rangy guy who's going to pressure Jezreel Corrales. I think this will be a real fight.
I think it will be, at least in the first half of it. I think Corrales is definitely the more primed fighter. He's Castellanos has gone through his wars. He has 10+ losses, as we mentioned before. And, you know, he does have nothing to lose in this fight. But in all honesty, I think the Golden Boy Promotions signed Corrales with, you know, Yuriorkis Gamboa in mind.
Yeah.
And that was, in last minute, a WBA elimination bout, the very last minute. And I think Corrales shouldn't have a problem, and I honestly think eventually we're going to see Corrales versus Berchelt.
Yeah, and what do they say about the best laid plans of mice and men? There's a reason why they fight the fights. And the light heavyweight opener, which I think might be the best fight on paper, Mike, I don't think anyone last year, I don't know if he was the fighter of the year, but he was the come out of nowhere guy to become somebody of the year guy, Joltin' Joe Smith.
He was the breakthrough fighter of 2016. He just blasted onto the scene. He officially ended Bernard Hopkins' career, right? He knocked him out of the ring.
Literally.
We were there that night, and we were very close to that. It happened right in the corner, right in front of press row. That was high drama. Now, unfortunately, Smith hasn't fought since then.
Yeah.
And I thought Barrera, that fight against Andre Ward, looking back at that, that's a good win for Ward now that we've seen what Barrera's done since. I think he's learned from that loss. I think he's grown. His last performance, he looked outstanding. Both of these guys are ripped. I've seen footage of them in camp. They are ready. This is going to steal the show. I can't wait to see this fight.
That's my favorite fight of the card. There's no doubt about it. Because it's the most 50-50, I believe. And are we really going to pick against Joe Smith for the third time in a row?
I don't know, man. That's a tough. I mean,
that's something I keep thinking about. Like, I don't want to put the guy down, but I really like Barrera in this fight.
This fight's being held at the Forum. Call me Marcel Dion because I'm going for the hat trick. I think Sullivan Barrera may not be spectacular, does not have the eye-opening power of Joe Smith, but I think he's more solid. And let's go back. Joe Smith popped a guy in Andre Fonfara who obviously has some punch resistance issue. Bernard Hopkins, a legend as he is, he's still 51 years old. Yeah. Sullivan Barrera, I believe, is 35 years old, much younger.
I think he's a little younger.
Yeah, and he's got a lot of miles left on the odometer. I don't see him as a worn-out fighter. And I agree with you, Mike. The Andre Ward experience was very good for Sullivan Barrera.
He has underrated craft. I think Barrera's craft is underrated. And I think actually his defense is underrated. I know he got dropped against Ward, but it's Andre Ward. So he has shown improvement since then. And Smith had all that momentum after that Hopkins win. His handlers just really did a disservice to him. They should have got him in the ring in the spring to get him a fight where he got some rounds in, some real rounds against a top maybe 15 fighter to work on his craft.
And fight on the East Coast for once.
Exactly. Yeah, take advantage of it.
The irony is that he is from Long Island, and there's actually a show in Nassau Coliseum with a bunch of guys that really don't have much to do with that neighborhood. Well, one note about Joe Smith, while he's been inactive, Sullivan Barrera fought Shabransky sometime around that same area. I believe the day before that fight. Then he fought Paul Parker. So I don't think that activity will be an issue, and that's why I do shade Sullivan Barrera. Well, on behalf of Michael Barrera and Michael Baca, this has been the 10 Count.